In this video, I'm going to share a few mysteries with you. You may have to rewind it. I'm going to try to show you a few things. Now, gotta listen up because we're going higher than third dimensional. In John chapter 3 and John chapter 4, both of those were about the woman. But we're going to hide in planet Earth. So I'm not talking about an earthly woman. In John chapter 3, you're primarily addressing the divine masculine. And in John chapter 4, you're directing basically looking at the divine feminine, the woman at the well, divine feminine, Nicodemus, divine masculine. The divine masculine. Now, it says Nicodemus came to Jesus in the nighttime. So you got the nighttime, which is the evening. And then you have them talking about serpents. Really, death and resurrection. Because people were getting bit by those serpents in Numbers chapter 21, around verse 6 or 9. And they were falling out. And then if they would just look at the serpent that Moses had on the pole, they would revive. And Jesus said he would be like that serpent. If you notice, the book of John talks a lot about the resurrection in John chapter 5, John chapter 11. But the book of John is all about the divine feminine, and it's all about the Hebrews. They talk a lot about Abraham in the book of John. In John chapter 8, they talk about Satan. John chapter 13, 14, 15, and 16 talk a lot about the woman in travail, and also the garden of Gethsemane. And John chapter 11 may also talk about that garden as well. This over the brook. And just recently I showed you, when I said that everything falls under principality, I showed you that word brook. And I was explaining to you about it. And those words, Brock, brook, book, all those words are connected to family lines right here on Earth. Take Keenan Booker from Las Vegas. The guy 720. So basically, this is what you see. This place that can be called the evening, the night, the deep, the well, the sea. It goes on and goes on. And you see it again at Mark 16, where they talk about serpents and Mary Magdalene, and either while it's still dark, they say that, I think John 20 they may say it, but the implication is there at Mark 16 as well. So there's different levels, different initiations. Now, if you study the Solomon's temple, you're going to see the word Mason 7 times in the Bible. And every time it's in regards to that temple. So that should tell you something right there. So anybody associated with these temples, the buildings of these temples, would be the building of the temple would also be associated with this dark side or hidden side. And remember, it was a woman that came to Samson and said, "What do you want?" He said, "I want wisdom." So what they're showing you is he made a pact with this divine feminine. And this is why he got involved with foreign women and all that. And because see, that's where you learn all that secret arts, sex magic and all that. And he was deep into all that kind of stuff. So now if you following me, because I just told you something significant, now you'll understand his writings where he told you to stay away from that woman and to talk about the depths of hell, because he's talking about dislocation. And you see those scriptures right in front of your thing. And it goes deeper as well, which we're not going to get into because we already went there. You already know the fool of fallen angels, and that they went into the depths of hell when they were thrown into white supremacy, especially Christianity, because that's the great fish that Jonah was trapped into. And it's 2,000 years or 2 days, but on the third day you come out, just like Jesus came out of the sepulcher, and that's what we're about to do. So we know all that, but there's still something that Solomon got into that he kind of tried to warn you about more and more. So you have to understand how this really works, bro. You could be set up, but you still gonna have to carry that weight. And that's why people that probably have better judgments, they've learned to watch what they say, watch what they do, because they already know it's kind of like that. And if you read the book of Job, he went from being a righteous man to being like, oh, the most wicked man on the planet. Nobody wanted to help him, although he helped everybody. And the same thing happened to Jesus. Nobody wanted to have anything to do with Jesus, because now he was being tried by the Roman government. The priest, the Hebrew priest, was saying he was wicked, and his reputation was destroyed. But he had to carry that. That went down in the history books as being true, although all of that was a lie, and everything about Job was a lie. So most people just keep quiet, and every now and then you'll meet someone who tries to duke it out, and they may or may not win. So if you're really listening to Solomon, he's warning you in the book of Proverbs, stay away from that woman, comparing things about her like the depths of hell. And in verse 17 and 18, she's basically saying, lay down with me. It's going to be sweet. It's stolen waters, but it's going to be sweet. And it's going to be done in secret, so it's pleasant. But he went on to say the dead are there and the depths of hell. When you go to John chapter 4, you see Jesus trying to save that woman from her well mentality. The well is deep. And he went on to say, oh, you got 5 husbands, and the one you're with now is not your husband. The man you're with, you've had 5 men, and the one you're with now is not your husband. So it's a lot there, and it's on 2 different levels. One is talking about the Hebrews that will go be put into a hell-like state, but eventually let out in 3 days. But another one is all these secrets, all this great wisdom Solomon had. But he realized how far it took him away from say his father, the way his father worshiped God. Because Solomon got involved with a whole lot of deep stuff. Not only was he having sex with all those foreign women, he was learning their secret worship, their foreign gods, their secret occult practices and stuff like that. So he's trying to tell you why he got caught out there. But he's putting it in symbolism, and you may not be able to see it. And then when he gives you vanity, it's vanity. And this is a book of Ecclesiastes. It's vanity and striving after the wind. So he ends the book of Ecclesiastes basically saying your whole obligation is to obey God. Because see, I try to teach all universal sovereignty. Because what you may not understand. See, somebody thinks just because something powerful comes your way, you have no choice. But you always have choices. You have universal sovereignty if you really wake up to who you are. This is why the Apostle Paul said, even if an angel from heaven was to tell you to follow some doctrine or teaching different from what we gave you, let that angel be accursed. Because you're going to carry it. And this is why people that really walk this walk, they strongly encourage people to keep their lives simple. Because, again, that's what Job made his mistake. He was trying to save the world. He was trying to be Messiah all by himself. And yet all those people that he helped, didn't one of them come help him. And that's why at the cross, they said, save yourself. You saved everybody else. Save yourself. Where's all these people you serve? How come that? Where's all these people you saved? Why aren't they here helping you? And one time I explained what went on at the cross, even with that darkness showing up. Because see, I try to tell you about Job and Jonah. Anything with a J-O in the Bible is an earth angel. This is why Job, Jonah, and Joshua, their books all talk about angels. A fire coming from heaven, which is angels, fire falling down, or planets above us, constellations above us, which they told you angels are the stars of heaven. And I'll show it to you really quick, because this is in the book of Enoch too. In Matthew chapter 15, first Jesus is arguing with the religious leaders. And then he finishes by saying, if you follow these fake leaders, blind leaders, see, that's that darkness again, you end up in the ditch. So you think that he's talking about two different things, because they leave that. This is still Matthew 15. They leave that and they end up, it goes feminine. Because now a woman's coming up to him and saying, save my daughter. She's being possessed by a devil. And he won't do it. And everybody that ever read that said, well, why wouldn't he save her? Why did he make that lady wait so long? But you don't realize that a lot of stuff he's talking about, those religious leaders, he's talking about the same thing. You did something where you end up in a ditch, and now you think I'm going to bring you out of it, but I'm not. So that's why they start talking about the crumbs and the tables. The crumb is the bread, and the table will always be the law. And she finally says something where he finally delivered her daughter. But in all that writing is, again, getting caught with something that entraps you in hell. Getting caught with something that entraps you in a ditch. See, it's in there. And I be trying to tell you, and a lot of people still won't get it. Because that's kind of like what happened with Paul. Because Paul has always been a mystery to everybody. But see, Paul got overtaken by that. If you read 2 Corinthians chapter 12, he tells you he was in paradise getting revelations. And that is that divine darkness is paradise. Luke chapter 23, verse 43 to 46. And Paul said he was there in 2 Corinthians 12, but then he starts getting attacked by a messenger of Satan. Then David said he was thrown into the deep. Now remember, they said the well is deep in John chapter 4, verse 6 and 7. So David got thrown in that deep, or that sea, or that well, in Psalm 69, verses 1 to 4 and 14, and he was crying out. But if you read all Psalm 69, he got revelation, though. In fact, he gave one of the best prophecies about the cross from Psalm 69, and that's when he was thrown in the deep. And then he was in a valley of shadow of death. But Solomon is trying to warn you. See, I told you the Son spoke to me regularly. A whole lot of stuff was going on. And I do have videos on the channel to talk about it. But there's a reason why the Son spoke to me. Because in every case, you got two paths you can go. You can go to light, you can go to darkness, the good, the evil. You can go into sin or abstinence. But it's a choice you have to make. And humans are so silly that they don't know they have power. And when somebody like me tries to tell them, they don't listen. And so that's why the book of Proverbs says the fool goes off, like he goes off the road. He goes off in destruction because he's foolish. He won't think. Like, that's folly. They won't think. They won't get knowledge. And it says, my people are perishing for lack of knowledge. And this is why he says, I don't know you, know not. See right here. But he does not know the dead are there. But see, when God says, know not, I don't know you. Get away from me, you workers of iniquity. I don't know you. So these people, they don't want to think. And that's why he's basically saying simple and stuff like that. Because there's different levels of sin. You could have people that just love to sin, and they would be hell-bound because they didn't repent. But then you have people that have tapped into like dark stuff. So you going hell-bound anyway, because that stuff you tapped into is hell. And that's what Solomon's trying to warn you. Now, did God save Solomon? Well, possibly because of Solomon being David's seed, he might have did it for David. Possibly. Or he might have did it because one time Solomon was a righteous king to help build the temple. But see, the temple really is now the people. So, because it's so close, it's hard to show it to you. But what I'm saying is there's dark arts. There's dark arts that you have to be careful, because you may get an offer to go into these dark arts. And if you don't know what I'm trying to teach you about universal sovereignty, you may make that choice. And that's a willful choice you made. Just like I'm trying to tell you. Jonah said, throw me in the sea. And they said, no, no, no. But they eventually threw him because they had to throw him in the sea, so they didn't get destroyed. But that still was a willful choice, even though it was made under the duress, but he still made it. See, we have Messiah, and that's why I say you have to be careful. And a lot of people don't understand, but you have to be careful what you find yourself getting involved with, or what you find yourself agreeing to, because it's different locations. And then again, the reason why the sun made itself very visible, because the offer is always coming, and I've always chose light. And it can be very complicated, because a lot of times the darkness is associated with Hebrews, but then sometimes the darkness is associated with just other stuff. Like being like Moses was able to go into the darkness, Exodus 20 verse 21. Plus, they say they put a veil on Moses' face. So what they're trying to tell you is Moses was able to go behind the veil of God and see things that nobody else would be able to see, or know things that nobody else would be able to know. And some people find that incredible. You even see in the Bible, he asks God, he tells God, I want to see you. And God said, no man can see me and live, but I'll let an angel pass by you and stuff like that. But then they do say he did get to go into the darkness where God was. And when he saw, but what did they say though? They said his face shined so bright that he had to put a veil on to block the rays. So he saw light. So that light protected him. So I'm trying to tell y'all that. And that's why the sun came out. Because I was trying to figure out, how was the sun like that early in the morning? A big ball of fire. And one spot that was like right up the street from my house. But when I got to my house, it was really where it normally is. It was just beginning to rise. It wasn't even a ball of fire yet from that perspective. But from the other perspective, that thing was like a big ball of fire. I said, oh, the sun is speaking. But there's a reason for, like, my ruler is a sun, I'm a Leo, and my brother's ruler is Venus. He's a Taurus, and he keeps seeing Venus. So we are connected to all this, as I keep trying to tell you. But you have to know your shit, because otherwise you can make a choice that could actually be detrimental to you. And for me, I always knew to stay with the light no matter what. But the darkness has always been there. And I understand the yin and the yang. I understand what's going on. But now I understand why Solomon wrote the way he did. Because he kind of was like he regretted it. And you could tell. And that's why when you read Ecclesiastes, he's basically saying all this stuff I got was a waste of time. He was going vanity, but he was blaming vanity. And he was saying striving after the wind. Those are two feminine terms. So I know who he was talking about. And then at the end of Solomon, he says, your whole obligation of a human is to obey God. And that can get confusing. But what I'm trying to say, people try to act like the Bible's not in full effect. And almost everybody says that. And that's where you got to be careful. Because the way I see it, the Bible is definitely still in full effect. I'm not saying it won't go down exactly. Like it's not written in stone, I don't believe. It's not written in stone, but the bottom line is, if people make choices that separate them from that light, then they go into some type of darkness, and it may not be too beautiful. So you have to be careful. Whereas the person who stays with the light, they'll be with the light. Because there's two primary locations. There might be even other locations. But see, if you really know who you were, you would know where to stand. Because I can't tell people what choices to make. But I think something, like she said, the well is deep. I think some choices you go can actually take you deeper into the depths of the underworld. That's what I believe. Like if you choose the occult side of all of this, then you're probably going deeper down into the depths of the womb or the bottomless pit. And that's what he's saying. But that's because they got the invite to go into secret, to go into the darkness. Now what I'm saying, if you were listening, you should be able to read it. They get the invite to go into the deep, and some people take it. And I think Paul took it. And that's why it's always been a mystery. So you gotta be careful, because Jesus Christ in the Bible, a lot of times that Jesus Christ is connected to like that side. And you just have to be careful. And I think that's why Solomon went out his way to try to warn you over and over again, because he knew he had made a big mistake in doing that. So again, if you were to get your concordance and look up the word Masons, because I think it's in there 7 times, but I believe it's plural. I don't think it's singular one time, but it's plural 7 times, but it's always connected to the Solomon's temple. And they tell you the Solomon's temple was built by evil spirits or devils. You know, whether that's true or not, you have to do your own research. But that's what I'm trying to tell you. God bless.